This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Progressive loves to help people make smart choices. That's why they offer a tool called Auto Quote Explorer that allows you to compare your Progressive car insurance quote with rates from other companies. So you save time on the research and can enjoy savings when you choose the best rate for you. Give it a try after this episode at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
Hey there, Ryan Reynolds here. It's a new year, and you know what that means. No, not the diet. Resolutions. A way for us all to try and do a little bit better than we did last year. And my resolution, unlike big wireless, is to not be a raging and raise the price of wireless on you every chance I get. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
Hani, you grew up in northern Gaza, right?
Yes, correct. That's the area where I spent my early years.
How would you describe your hometown? Like, what's the image in your mind that you have of it?
It's a rural area, a lot of farms, a lot of people with nice trees in their homes. It's more spacious than Jabalia camp, which wasn't too far, where the refugees are sheltering.
This is Hani Almadhoun. He grew up in the Gaza Strip in the northern city of Beit Lahia. It's known as the breadbasket of Gaza, or was. Hani says the landscape is usually green, the people very close.
If there is a funeral, people show up with food. If there is a wedding, people show up ready to dance and celebrate. So it's a very small town where everybody knows everybody, and it feels like everyone is a neighbor. And that's the values we grew up with in North Gaza.
What does Beit Lahia actually look like on the ground today?
You would not recognize it. It looks like has been hit by a huge, massive earthquake that destroyed everything, not only the bricks and mortar, but also the greenery and the humans who live there.
Hani lives in the U.S. now. He works as the senior director of philanthropy at UNRWA USA. It's a private nonprofit that raises money for UNRWA, the UN agency, known officially as the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees in the Near East. The vast majority of Gaza's population relies on UNRWA's aid or services. We're talking food, but the agency provides medical care, vaccinations, schools, and has for decades. Hani's father was even an UNRWA teacher.
He used to teach English. He worked for 20 years being an educator. But in fact, our story with UNRWA goes beyond or before my father. My grandfather worked as a sanitation worker at UNRWA, and that's one of the couple of English words he knows. He was a sanitation worker. He knew how to say that.
So growing up, you always had this awareness of UNRWA's work.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. You would see people just in certain day of the month going back with bags of flour, powdered milk, and that was the main lifeline of survival for a lot of Palestinians.
But survival in the Gaza Strip has become increasingly difficult over the last 14 months, and there's a good chance it could get worse in the new year. Back in October, the Israeli parliament voted to ban UNRWA from operating in Israel, a law slated to take effect in January. Meanwhile, Hani understands, on a personal level, how hungry people are. About a year ago, he and one of his siblings in Gaza, Mahmoud, created a network of soup kitchens. Mahmoud started with a few large pots, cooking for as many people as he could. Hani helped raise money for the effort from the States, and the project expanded.
And one of the hardest parts at the soup kitchens right now is to control the crowd, because conditions are so desperate. The U.S. government, when they have the moral courage, they will admit it's a famine. So we cook for people, and more we're spending more money to provide food for more people because they're not receiving aid. They cannot cook on their own because there is no fuel. and then it's a logistical nightmare just to prepare a bowl of pasta.
And humanitarian work comes with risks. Hani's brother, Mahmoud, was killed 1 month ago by an Israeli drone. Today on the show, how getting aid to Gazans may only get harder, and how people like Hani are trying to help while battling their own grief. I'm Yasmin Khan, in for Mary Harris. You're listening to What Next? Stick around.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today? Smart choice. Progressive loves to help people make smart choices, and that's why they offer a tool called Auto Quote Explorer that allows you to compare your Progressive car insurance quote with rates from other companies, so you can save time on the research and can enjoy savings when you choose the best rate for you. Give it a try after this episode at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states and situations. Prices vary based on how you buy. This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today? Smart choice. Progressive loves to help people make smart choices, and that's why they offer a tool called Auto Quote Explorer that allows you to compare your Progressive car insurance quote with rates from other companies, so you can save time on the research and can enjoy savings when you choose the best rate for you. Give it a try after this episode at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states and situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
UNRWA was founded in 1949 to care for Palestinians who left their homes or were forced from them during the founding of Israel. Over the decades, it's grown into the biggest relief agency operating in the Gaza Strip. Growing up, Hani says UNRWA was very much woven into the fabric of daily life.
UNRWA has a sanitation operation that's, sewage, and it's not sexy, it's not attractive, but it is essential. It delivers water right now in the middle of the nightmare in Gaza. Daily, UNRWA delivers a little bit over the equivalent of a large Olympic-sized swimming pool for people to drink. And UNRWA delivers the fuel to the hospitals or whatever hospitals that remain in Gaza. So it plays a big role, but also in education. About 50% of the kids in Gaza go to an UNRWA school. And guess what? Those tend to be better schools because the teachers are paid a little bit than the average public teacher. It has a good curriculum. And it is also, one of the main reasons why kids in Gaza have the highest vaccination rate around the globe. 99% of kids in Gaza are vaccinated. Guess what? That's higher than Germany, who comes at 97. So that's sort of like the contribution UNRWA delivers, but also education. I mean, even the Palestinians who don't benefit from UNRWA, traditionally, 70% of the people of Gaza are refugees. So in theory, 30% of the Palestinians in Gaza do not qualify for aid from UNRWA. Now that has changed because of the sheltering. So any Palestinian who's left their home, they go under UNRWA. So UNRWA is helping a lot more people. But even those who did not benefit, they enjoyed the benefits of not having to pay more for goods. Because if UNRWA is bringing aid for 75% of the people, there is not going to be as much demand for the chickpeas, because they receive it in aid.
Yeah. So I'm hearing you say that in addition to the humanitarian work that we all have been hearing about and the food deliveries and that kind of thing, they're kind of providing the infrastructure for civil society.
100%. 100%. The 13,000 staff who work for UNRWA, this is Gaza's middle class.
Is there another agency or government delivering aid and services on the same scale as UNRWA?
Every single UN agency has declined the offer by the right-wing Israeli government to replace UNRWA. Every single UN agency. The UN Secretary General says UNRWA is irreplaceable. Now, the Israelis may come with hey, let's do a private sector, provide aid. Guess what? UNRWA's budget is $1.5 billion. That's really a de facto government scale. You're not talking about, hey, just deliver aid. I know how hard it is, not because of my work with UNRWA. I also know we run 6 soup kitchens. The Gaza Soup Kitchen runs 6 soup kitchens, and it's a lot of work. Can you imagine to do that for 2 million people?
UNRWA and Israel have had a tense relationship for a long time, probably going back to UNRWA's founding in 1949. Could you explain to me some of that history there? What's behind that dynamic?
The Israelis, look, their beef with UNRWA is they convince themselves that UNRWA prolongs the Palestine refugee status. The nightmare every Israeli have is that a family refugee like myself, my grandparents were kicked out from a town called Asqalan. In Arabic, in Hebrew, it's called Ashkelon. This town now is a popular spot for Ukrainian war evacuees. So they come there because it's cheaper rent. Me, my family still have not been allowed to go back there. So this is when the Palestinians talk about the right of return. That's the nightmare for the Israelis because they created fact on the ground. Now, this is a miscalculation because UNRWA is a neutral side. UNRWA does not have a position in the war, but the Israelis think if you took UNRWA away, then the Palestine refugees will cease to exist. So meaning I will never tell people we're from Ashkelon. So that's sort of like their hope is for the Palestine refugees to disappear.
Over the years, the Israeli government has raised various complaints about UNRWA. Back in 2022, for instance, an Israeli watchdog claimed that UNRWA educational materials were perpetuating anti-Israel views, including teaching students that the state was trying to erase Palestinians' identities. Those tensions continue to play out now. After October 7th, Israel alleged that some UNRWA employees had been working with Hamas and may have even helped plan the attacks. The UN investigated Israel's claim and fired 9 people, but it said Israel had not provided evidence for more allegations. Then, in October of this year, things escalated. The Israeli parliament voted to ban UNRWA from operating in Gaza and the West Bank starting in 2025.
At the end of the day, this is going to hurt people like my family and my neighbors and my friends who come to know UNRWA to be that partner. Whenever in past wars, when Israel bombs and destroys homes, UNRWA comes and rebuild the homes and compensate people. If they take that away, who's going to help people in Gaza? Maybe the intention is to depopulate Gaza, but at the end, there is going to be obligations in the West Bank. Who's going to run the education system there? So the Israelis know that UNRWA is irreplaceable. They've said they've heard no from every credible partner who could do a big scale operation in Gaza. And maybe they will just walk it back. Maybe they will say, okay, you could limp, you could do something, but not this. We don't know. Now, I'm hopeful. Whatever happens is my people and my friends in Gaza continue to receive the aid they need because they do not want to be in aid. They just want to be left alone right now. They want to be not dead. They want to be alive.
Just to put it bluntly, how much worse do you think things could get in Gaza if UNRWA is not allowed to operate?
It is going to be unlivable conditions in Gaza if UNRWA is not responding there. It seems that folks don't learn from lessons of the past. I don't like him, but Winston Churchill once said, count on Americans to do the right thing once they have tried everything else. I think this applies here in Gaza, where you have an agency that's, by the way, physically conservative. UNRWA's cost is a third of any other UN agencies, meaning if UNRWA brings a food truck and the World Food Program brings a food truck, UNRWA's cost is a third of that cost. That's a fact by the UN Secretary General. Why? Because 99% of UNRWA staff are Palestinian or Palestine refugees themselves. So that's why they're able to do a lot with less, but also helping the local economy and create jobs. The 13,000 staff who have 13,000 families behind them, they're not going to have that income. The powdered milk that people use to make labneh and cheese is not going to be there. The damage, the long-term damage that's going to happen from destroying UNRWA or banning UNRWA is going to be felt not only in Gaza, but it's going to be felt beyond it.
After the break, how smaller aid operations are also coming under fire in Gaza, something Hani knows firsthand.
This episode is brought to you by Discover. It's always nice to get more for less. So here's a life hack that can automatically put some extra cash in your pocket. Discover will automatically double all the cash back you've earned on your credit card at the end of your first year with Cashback Match. So you could get some money for this holiday season and get more next holiday season. It pays to Discover. See terms at discover.com/creditcard.
Oh, it's such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Shop Blinds.com right now and get up to 40% off select styles, plus a free professional measure. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Slate Money is a weekly discussion of the most important stories in the world of business and finance. Over the past 10 years, we've become known as the place to go if you want to understand what's going on in business, or if you just want to laugh at some of its successes. So if you want a podcast that doesn't turn CEOs into heroes, listen to Slate Money with me, Felix Salmon, and my co-hosts Emily Peck and Elizabeth Spires every Saturday morning, wherever you get your podcasts.
You've been a professional fundraiser for UNRWA for years, but last January, you wanted to do more on the ground in Gaza. So you and your brother, Mahmoud, decided to start a food kitchen together. What led you to that idea?
Yeah, so when UNRWA was ordered to leave North Gaza, and I was raising a lot of money for the agency that I love, I felt I'm not good as a human being if I raise money for a lot of families, but not my own.
Yeah. You mentioned, I think, that it was watching a video of your sister baking bread with animal feed is one of the things that sort of helped spark the idea in your mind that you needed to do something very direct and concrete for your own family.
Correct, yeah. So I've heard reports about this on the news, and I was like, maybe they're trying to make a point, and I didn't believe it. But then I saw my sister trying to bake some bread substance from the animal feed. She said it smelled so bad, and even the cat would not eat it. So we started a soup kitchen out of necessity. So my brother, Chef Mahmoud, got 3 large pots to cook soup for people. There was no food. He could only make stews with tomato paste, maybe something picked up from the farms in Beit Lahia. And his first day, he provided 120 families with food, and we thought we're good. But then kids really showed up asking for food the next day at his house, actually. So he said, okay, let me process this. And he really sustained this for 10 months until the last day of his life.
Wow. Can you tell me a little bit more about your brother, Mahmoud? Had he ever worked as a chef before?
No, he would only cook food for us on Fridays. He would make food for the family. So he would make rice and chicken and all that. But when he saw the need in Gaza and the starved kids, and I told him, listen, we have the money to make this happen, he started solving the hunger crisis. You know, he used to sell cell phones. That's his job. And all of a sudden he said, like, hey, I could solve this. And he got some people. He managed a crew of up to 15 people.
I do want to dwell on how you two worked together and how one goes about creating a soup kitchen in what is essentially a war zone. What is the process for putting something like that together?
Yeah, so the biggest problem was to figure out how we're going to talk to Mahmoud because nobody was talking. The Israelis were elaborate in bringing down the communication network. So we got him an international SIM and an advanced iPhone that managed to get a hold of him. Then how are we going to get money to Gaza where there is no banks? That's a struggle in itself. For the first couple of weeks, believe it or not, we sustained it from the money left behind my brother Majid. When he was killed, he had about $12,000 on him, and we figured we're gonna borrow it and just cook food for people. So we used that until we figured out how to get the money. Basically, the money leaves my account on PayPal. From PayPal, it goes to, well, I don't want to say PayPal and then they close my account tomorrow. That's why. So it goes from PayPal and then sometimes it goes to Bank of Palestine. And from Bank of Palestine, you could use it to buy things from the app, or you could just get it cash. If you get it cash, you lose up to 25% of that money.
Huh.
So at the end, you want to make sure you continue to support your operation. There has been cases where a vendor large enough to say, okay, I don't need cash, just put the money in my, like basically like sell. So we'll pay them that and then we get what we need.
Do you remember the first day that the kitchen opened? How did you make sure people even knew to show up?
Yeah, that's, believe it or not, I knew about the first day from the news. There's a Palestinian Telegram channel I follow that showed a picture with a kid with a pot. And it said like, hey, there's a new soup kitchen that opened here. And I knew it was my brother. So he's hired his friend, this hack, to take pictures. When people saw somebody's cooking in the open, they assume that they're going to serve people. So when kids saw him making that stew, they lined up. And that's why he got established. Then the next day, 200 people showed up. The next day, 220, 250, it got to up to 700 families.
The soup kitchen has done so much business that Hani and Mahmoud were able to set up other ventures, too. They began using solar panels to pump water and deliver it to northern Gaza. They also opened a medical clinic and a small school. There were challenges, too. Mahmoud was temporarily detained by the Israeli military twice. Things as basic as finding ingredients weren't easy either. Sometimes it came down to luck.
There was like 1,500 pounds of potatoes that he was able to buy from a vendor. So what happened is the farmer had left to the south and he left his land. Obviously, much of the crop was damaged, but there was 1,500 pounds of potatoes. So Mahmoud bought them at once. He had the cash to do that. Then he bought carrots and then kept going. The biggest struggle for them was actually to find salt. Believe it or not, we're in the sea and we couldn't find salt. So they would figure out how to get salt every day. And tomato paste, they still have some. But really, the rain in Gaza helped us. Because of the rain, we foraged a lot of leafy greens, chard, persimmon, mallow, all that stuff came through and people ate for the longest time. I tell people sometimes when everybody failed the Palestinians, the land did not, because really that kept a lot of people fed during the winter months.
Do you remember the last thing that you heard from your brother before he was killed in a drone strike on November 30th?
Yes. I could tell he was stressed because we were losing a lot more friends and cousins and neighbors. And he was thinking to evacuate his family to the west of where he was. And he said he may follow them later. He had ordered produce to Kamal Adwan Hospital, and he was supposed to receive it on Saturday. He was killed on a Saturday. He was walking to the hospital when they targeted him. The produce got delivered on Sunday. The next day, got held up, and then it came back. So that was his last and final gift to Kamal Adwan Hospital. I woke up on Saturday at 2:51 a.m. to the horrific news of his assassination. And it's sad because he's a chef. You would think they're assassinating a top militant leader. He's a chef who's just lovable goof, and he's no longer here.
So you think that Mahmoud was targeted? Is that right?
Oh, I don't think. I know for sure. This is a fact. We have eyewitnesses who confirmed the attack was for him and only him. We know that it's not a mistake. We know that it was waiting outside, hovering over his house, and he came out, and then boom, within 2 minutes, 3 minutes, he was gone. And when they had hope they could take him to the hospital to save him, they came under sniper fire, which tells you it's all planned. It's not an accident. The sniper fire was there to just shoot at anybody who's going to rescue his life. And eventually he died. And he was buried in a makeshift grave, not too far from the soup kitchen.
You know, you mentioned that many aid workers have been killed in Israeli attacks since October 2023, including 200 UNRWA staff members. Did you and Mahmoud see, starting this soup kitchen as a risk?
Existing in Gaza is a risk. A baby killed in Gaza did nothing, and they still were killed. Now, logically speaking, we were thinking by him being out there, by him being a high profile, that may discourage people from targeting him. But I guess also that creates him a target, because if they take a high enough target, that's to send a message to the community, hey, we went after this guy, you better run for your life. So it's me, and I think about this. My brother Majid died nameless and faceless. He was in his home asleep, did nothing, and they killed him. And then my brother Mahmoud, Chef Mahmoud, may his soul rest in peace, he was beloved, well known, well liked, and still killed. So in Gaza, it doesn't really matter what you do. You could be sleeping in the hospital. You could be doing nothing and get killed. So it's a crisis of faith for me, and I just struggle with that. All the Israelis had to do is just call me or call him and say, leave, or we're gonna get you. He would have left. They had my number, they had his, but they just chose to take the bloody path. And for that, I will never forgive them. They literally had his name and phone number all along. I know that. And then they just killed him.
Have you been able to process all of this? I don't even know how one begins to process all of this.
Yeah, I don't. I still haven't really. Because this nightmare has not stopped. We're not, I remain hopeful that I still have my one brother in North Gaza remaining, and I have my sisters, and I hope we do not have to have any memorial services for anyone. I pray that they remain out of harm's way. But if the intention was for our family to stop helping people, that hasn't really worked. Because since Chef Mahmoud had been killed, we've expanded our work. We actually have now 4 locations in North Gaza. One of those 4 locations provide meals for the hospital. So this location serves 3 main hospitals in Gaza City. They provide about 140 meals per day. We have 2 more locations in the south. One of them is in Khan Yunis, the most south. But the biggest one is in the Zawaida, where we provide meals for no less than 530 families per day. We run a school or a school classroom that meets every other day in Khan Yunis. We deliver water in many parts of Gaza, north and south. And, we're helping as much as we can because we have the tools to do it.
Yeah. News outlets have been reporting for the last 14 months, basically, that aid in Gaza has been reduced to a trickle, that people are starving and in need of basic supplies. We've heard warnings for a year about, imminent famine in northern Gaza. For 14 months, this has been the language of the conflict. And now, locals trying to help their neighbors, they're getting killed. The organization, UNRWA, doing most of the humanitarian work in Gaza, could be shut down. What does this mean for Gaza in 2025?
Well, nothing good. Obviously, we have gotten used to images of starving kids. We have gotten used to hospitals being a target. We have gotten used to lies. By just dubbing this a conflict, I'm worried that we're understating it. It's not even a war. This is Amnesty International was the latest organization to call it a genocide. And in genocide, facts don't matter, it seems, and we're live streaming this and people are praying for us and they're heartbroken. They may donate for a meal. But at the end, nobody has stopped this. This is not going to go away. And the absence of UNRWA and other agencies is going to create conditions that are going to be felt for decades to come.
Hani, thank you so much for your time and for your stories. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, and enjoy the new year. Hopefully we'll see better days.
Hani Almadhoun is the Senior Director of Philanthropy at UNRWA USA. And that's the show. What Next is produced by Paige Osburn, Elena Schwartz, Rob Gunther, Anna Phillips, Madeline Ducharme, and Ethan Oberman. We're led by Alicia Montgomery. Ben Richmond is the Senior Director of Podcast Operations here at Slate, and I'm Yasmin Khan in for Mary Harris. Thanks for listening. Talk to you soon.